All right, good morning. Merry Christmas. Y'all look awesome. It is so good to see you here at Quest Church for one of our services here on Christmas Eve. My name is John Kinney, and let me join anybody who has welcomed you. We're really glad that you're here to worship with us on this special, special day. Listen, if you're a guest with us from out of town or in town, but you've come to be with us on this Christmas Eve, I'm so glad that you're here. I want to say welcome, and I also want to let you know that we have a gift for you. When you leave today, out by the big Christmas tree in the lobby or the photo station right outside these doors, there are gifts like this in baskets. We want you to take these, something you can use with your family, even tonight, a little bit about the Christmas story, a candle, and we're just really glad that you came to worship with us. So again, that's for you if you're a guest with us. If you're watching online or listening later, I'm really glad that you're joining us today. I want to start with a question on this Christmas Eve, and you're allowed to participate by raising your hands, all right? Y'all ready for this? Who can remember the home that you grew up in? Let's see some hands. Anybody? Some of you are like, well, I'm growing up there right now. Well, that means you're young. I'm really glad that you're here. If you're older like me, you kind of go, yeah, let's think about that. I grew up, I had to ask my mom to be sure this was correct. Last night, she confirmed it. 17 homes I grew up in before I went to college. And the reason is, yeah, my dad was military. I went to 3 kindergartens, as a matter of fact. Not because I failed, but because we moved 3 times. All right, these are some pictures. The one on the left in that big bubble thing, that's me at the top with hair, yes. We lived right behind there in those apartments. That was in Germany, Herx, Germany, in Frankfurt. The other ones are pictures of me in North Carolina hanging out with friends, and one of them my brother in that cool car. But I want you to notice in the background, y'all see that station wagon? That would be in even today, would it not? Some of you be like, I want that ride. Those were my homes, just a few of the 17 that I grew up in. My wife, Shauna, on the other hand, she grew up in one home her entire life. Here's a picture of that house. I miss that house because when I'd go to visit, and we'd go to visit her family like we're going to do later this week, her parents are now in a retirement community. And so this picture of Shauna, she's in the middle, that's my wife, with her sisters. This was the last day they were in that house. They took a picture because her parents were moving out and they sold the house, and just kind of that nostalgic, emotional moment of moving away. I just think it's amazing. Any of you that grew up in one house your whole life, I'm kind of jealous. Like when Shauna goes home, her same friends are there and stuff like that. When you're a military kid, it's awesome for other reasons, but like your friends are all over the world, right, when you do that. But I don't know what your home experience is like. That's mine. That's my wife, Shauna's. Everybody has an experience of home and what that is. In fact, you guys, all of you here today are listening online. You came from home probably to be here. Like you traveled from home to get here, and then after this, you'll either do lunch or brunch or go to someone else's house. But then you will eventually, before the clock strikes 12 tonight, right? Especially if you have kids, you will be going back where? To your home. We come and go from home all the time. If you look up the word home, it actually says in the dictionary, your residence. I'm like, that's not very helpful. What does that mean? So if you look up the word residence, it says where you live. And isn't that what home is? Where we live. It's where we do life. It's where we come and go from all of the time. It's just really, really an important place. In fact, last week or a week or two ago, I was at State Farm Arena in Atlanta, and I'm kind of bad with big cities. Like my sister was there, and she was just laughing at me like, John, you don't have to reserve the parking spot in advance. You don't got to know how many steps it is to the State Farm Arena and which turn. I will get you there, because she lives in Atlanta, right? Big city. And so we were there, and I was leaving the parking garage, and I'm like, I have no idea how to get out of downtown Atlanta. So you know what I did? I pulled open my GPS, and in my history it said, home. You just hit home, boom, got me there. By the time I got to Grovetown, I knew where I was going, all right? But that's kind of the way it is. I think you would agree with me, this idea of home is central in our lives. It's where you leave from every day. It's where you go back to every single day. What is home? It's not just a place, is it? It's a physical address, it's a place, right? But it's also people. Home is also people who are there, and it's one way or another, we always end up back home, at that place, and also with those people. Why is this important on Christmas Eve? Here's why. Christmas has something to do with this idea of home. John, explain that to me. All right, thank you. I will. In the book of Genesis, first book of the Bible, all right, it means beginnings. When God put all this into effect, when he created the world and he created humanity, he actually said, I'm to be the center of your existence. You're going to live in a relationship with me. And so Adam and Eve and humanity, we lived in a relationship, because we're human too, right? We lived in a relationship with God. He was the centerpiece of life. He wasn't forgotten like we forget him. He was everything to Adam and Eve. They lived in a constant, ongoing, daily, consistent, amazing relationship with the Creator. The creation lived with the Creator. In Genesis chapter 1 and 2, God is central. You can read about it, to humanity's existence. It's all about God and humanity and this special relationship that God has with his people. I think you could say that God was meant to be home for us. That idea of home that's central to your life, that people in place that you come and go from all the time, that's who God was supposed to be. He was meant to be home for us. But, check this out. We left home. In Genesis chapter 3, we're barely into the story of God and us and this relationship we're supposed to have with him. We leave God. We leave our center. We really leave our home, who is God. It's called sin. Sin is whenever we go our way instead of God's way. And so we left home. Adam and Eve left. They sinned. They rebelled against God. They said, God, you have your way, but we have our way. And they would rather go that way, and we have suffered the consequences. You fast forward to Jesus, all right? He was born at Christmas, right? That's kind of we celebrate Jesus as born at Christmas. That's what this day is about. This is what we come together. I know there's lots of other stuff that gets celebrated as well. We got the trees and the presents and all that. But Christmas is about Jesus. That's the story, right, that we tell and retell every single year at this time. You fast forward to Jesus. He actually, this little baby born in a manger, grows up and he's teaching and preaching and he's telling people about his mission and why he's come into this world, what he's here for. One of the places he tells the people why he's come is in Luke chapter 15. He's trying to explain to people in his day while he walked this earth, this is what I'm here for. This is why I've come. And so in Luke chapter 15 at verse 11 it says, Jesus told them a story. So he used a story to explain his mission. A man had two sons. Some of you know this story. Some of you may not. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. In antiquity, people act to try to get the money before your parents died. I would say it wouldn't be a good thing to do today either. You wouldn't be seen as upstanding. In their day and time, though, you should know this. This is freak us out probably. It was punishable by death. To ask for it while your parents were still alive, it was legally punishable by death. And so the son sins against his father by asking for this money now, choosing his own way over his father's way. It says this, a few days later, the younger son packed up all his belongings and moved to a distant land, and there he wasted all the money, probably doesn't surprise us with the way he's going, right, in wild living. The sin continues. It's not just that he left home, now he's blowing all the money, his inheritance. His father's still alive, and he's blowing all the money in wild living is what it says. But here's what I want you to notice more than anything. He left home. Do you see that? He left home. He left his center. It wasn't the physical address as much as it was what? The relationship with his father, the offense to his father. He said, I'm leaving, I'm out of here, I'm going my own way. Again, not as much the place, but the person. And here's what we need to know. Jesus is telling our story when he tells this story. Because remember, we were created to have a relationship with God. God is supposed to be our center. God is supposed to be our what? Home. Right? We're supposed to come and go from him every day. But what did I say? In Genesis, we did what? We left home. Just like this younger son left home and offended the father in his sin, he left home, he left God, we have left God. In the story about the prodigal son, we often call this, he ends up losing everything. You can tell he's blowing all the money. He goes one more time to spend some money and the credit card gets rejected. Limit, you've hit it, right? Isn't that bad when that happens? But he hit the limit and wasn't able to spend any more. And so at this point, he's starving, he's hungry, he's got nothing left, and he decides, I'm going to risk it. I'm going to go back to the house, but it won't be the same home I came from. It's not the same anymore because I've sinned against the Father. I've sinned against my dad and all of them. And so he decides, I'm going to go back. I'm just going to ask if I can be a servant. My dad has many servants in the house. I'll be a 1099. Like I just need to earn a little bit of money so I can feed myself and take care of myself. Maybe he'll give me a place to sleep out back. I don't know, right? So this is what he does, and it says, so he returned home, and while he was still a long way off, his father saw him coming. Filled with love and compassion, he, that is the father, ran to the son, embraced him, and kissed him. The father did what no one expected. This is radical and crazy. He welcomed his son. Where? Home. It was not expected. Nobody who's hearing this story, they think the family's going to run out and stone the kid to death. The end. That's kind of what they expected Jesus to say. But in the story, he talks about a father running to welcome a son home. Not to the place, but more to the what? Relationship. When Jesus is explaining this, Jesus is the one telling this story. He's telling the people why he came to earth. He's explaining to them, my purpose here in this world is to love a world that had left home, who had left him. You see, all of this leads me to state this about Christmas. Christmas is calling us home. The entire reason Jesus came into this world is because God is calling us home in Christ to the relationship, the person of God, to our center, to himself, to everything we've been made and purposed for.